So, hello everyone, and welcome to the very first meeting of the Web3 Tuesdays webinar series. Katia and I are very excited to host this event that will take place every Tuesday with amazing speakers. As you can tell from today's session, they will talk to us about the law and the latest technological developments, ranging from blockchain, the Metaverse, AI, you name it. It's short and sweet. We have only 30 minutes with a 20-minute presentation and a 10-minute Q&A at the end. You can see a Q&A box in your screen, and we invite you to type in your questions, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Just a short housekeeping matter, the session is recorded, so if you don't want to appear in the video, please turn off your camera. You may have noticed that we also minted a token. It's an ERC20 token that comes along with this initiative. If you expressed your interest, you will receive an email afterwards with all the details on how to claim it. But keep an eye also on the LinkedIn page for any updates. And now let's introduce our amazing speaker for today. I'm sure that many of you already know her, but in case you don't, Professor Crenguta Leaua is the director of the Swiss Institute for Alternative Thinking, a member of the board of directors of Silicon Valley Arbitration and Mediation Center, a founding partner at LDDP law firm in Bucharest, professor of comparative international arbitration at Bucharest University of Economic Studies, and former vice president of the ICC International Court of Arbitration. A truly amazing speaker for our first meeting. So without any further ado, Professor Crenguta, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. And if I may, this time I will take the hat of professor because I'm trying to explain something, but you should know that nobody is a professor in the metaverse right now. I mean, this is an area in which we are all developing our understanding. We are all trying to move on and define the territory as it is developed. So that's an interesting world that we are entering. First thing that is quite amazing, it's a discussion that I attended in which it was a heated debate about whether there is a metaverse, the metaverse, or they are metaverses, like a plural of the expression. And there are actually two visions that we have at this moment as to the metaverse. One is about integrating the new technologies that are basically using augmented worlds, realities, and business models into one unitary concept. And then we have the concept of the metaverse. And then it's the practical application of this kind of integration of new technologies, which is the creation of different virtual realities in which various different relationships take place. And then we are speaking about the metaverses, I mean the plural of the notion. And examples of this are like Decentraland or Sandbox or many others that are nowadays developed. If we look at the concept itself, we see that basically we are developing new territories. And how do we develop them? There are a number of technologies in place, and those technologies are important because each technology is coming with the legislation that is regulating it. So if you look at the legal fabric of the metaverse, you will understand that first of all, we have all the legal territory of the technologies that are used. And this is the first layer. I would say the base layer, the hardware layer. Here we have a number of such technologies, many of them with special legislation that is addressing them. We have, first of all, the interactive sensing. The interactive sensing refers to the wearable devices, the XR devices, the brain-computer interface of, and then various sensors. Then we have the network transmission. We have the 5G, 6G, the Wi-Fi 6, the low Earth orbit satellite, and other technologies that allow the network transmission. And then we have the computing chips, going from CPU, GPU to quantum computing. I won't enumerate them all. But in all of them, we have specific layers of applicable legislation, and that is the base of the hardware technology. Then we have the software technology, that it is also in many occasions regulated, or if not regulated, already pending regulation. We are in the phase in which principles, ethical principles are developed, or in which we have industry standards developed as well. So we have the legislation at its very, very inception, in which we discuss about the principles and we discuss about the industry acceptance of some common rules that would later on develop into law. And here we have four main technologies, I would say, but we can discuss about many others. The first of all, we have the blockchain technology, the distributed ledger, the smart contracts, the NFTs, the non-fungible tokens. We also have the cryptocurrency if it is used in this territory of the metaverse. And then that is all a specific part of technology that is subject to regulation and subject to further regulation in various parts of the world. Then we have the artificial intelligence territory. In that, we have machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, all of them going through a significant debate internationally and development of standards from ethical perspective, but also compatibility with human rights and different other type of rights that might be into place. Then we have the cloud computing, where we discuss about the computing, the storage, the rendering, etc. That is a technology of its own, and the digital twins. Now, with the digital twins, it's a significant development. Why? Because basically we may have digital twins of physical objects, but we may also have digital twins of humans. And if we have digital twins of physical objects, we may have the legislation to address this kind of situation. And what is the nature of the rights that we have? It's a whole discussion about whether we can have property rights, or we can have other type of rights over the digital assets, the digital twins, the transfer of physical reality into the digital world. As to the personal twins, the avatars, if we go into that area, we also have specific concerns as to the applicability of the legislation concerning identity, concerning privacy, concerning, for instance, the name as part of an identity. We all are already familiar with the pseudonyms and their protection in the IP rights, but then how about the avatars, names, etc.? So we can develop these kind of legal applications a lot into this as well. So that is about the software in general. But then if we move from this, we can see that applications bring us into various industries. And as long as we get into these industries, we will get into the legislation applicable to those industries. And basically, there are three main areas of in the interactions in various application scenarios. First of all is for consumers, then business to business, but then we also have government applications. And each of them has its own part of legislation that it is applicable. Let's start in reverse order. Let's start with the governments. We have applications in the context of the metaverse for infrastructure, for transportation, for city governance, for government management, and others. Some cities, like for instance Seoul, are developing digital twins in the sense or with the purpose for consulting the population as to the acceptable changes into the physical world as well, or for educating the population to some type of new developments that may be also applicable into the physical world. So we may have even the very concept of government, governance, and the concept of government communicating with the citizens that may be experimented also into this territory of the metaverse, into this new version. If we go to business, then we see that all this platform that is created with the hardware and the software technologies is interacting with the various users into their applications for business purposes, let's say health and other type of healthcare and other type of services that are surrounding this industry, or finance, or manufacturing, or supply chain. All of them, if reflected into an interaction in the metaverse, will bring their own legislation that is related, for instance, in the healthcare with the communication between doctor and patient, or in finance on the topic of relationship between the various actors of these relationships. If it is about manufacturing, also what kind of digital assets are manufactured, and what is the relationship between the digital presence of a certain object and the physical product. You see already that there are a number of relationships in this respect. People that had this great idea in various industries of building together and selling together the physical product and the digital product in the form of an NFT. And in that sense, you are the owner of two products in one. And then the whole story of developing those business relationships start from there. And then is the relationship with the consumer and the use cases that are getting there in the consumer applications. And then you have a lot. First of all, the shopping experience. As businesses develop their digital products, consumers may buy them. Then we have the travel experiences. Instead of traveling into real life, you travel into the metaverse, but these are also travel services if you think about that. Then we have the entertainment, the gaming, the education, the social networking, all those contexts of relationships that may take place between humans in the metaverse. All of them are subject of a specific regulation in the real world as well. So apparently you would say that the metaverse is a new concept, that it's not very much regulated, but in a way we bring all legislation that is supporting this kind of activities into the metaverse. And then the question is there a specific application? Is there a need for a nuance in the way in which the relationship is defined in the current normal reality when you move it into the fabric of the metaverse, into this context of interactions? Is or it is not something specific? And the major distinctions, I think, should be approached from the following perspective: the perspective of mentalities. Because what we have achieved in the legal concepts here in our natural world, it's some sort of consistency. So somehow in all this long history of the relationship between humans and the physical reality, we got into an agreement as to who we are, what is external to us, what is internal to us, and how we basically interact with the environment. And now what is happening with the metaverse is that there is a huge change into the environment itself. The laws of physics are not longer applicable, and therefore the whole parameters of the reality that we are interacting is different. And also the interactions are different, because we are used to interact with people that we can identify as people. While in the metaverse, you have characters, and some of them may be avatars of humans, and some of them may be what in the language of gaming is called the non-playable characters, namely artificial intelligence expressing a certain behavior into the image of an avatar. So you are not exactly sure that you're interacting with a human being on the other side, which in the current world is not a problem, in the metaverse might be. So once again, a parameter of the reality, the certitude that the one that you're interacting with, it's a human being, it's under some hesitation, and you need to define it into the metaverse. Then the third element, which is also important, other than the relationship with nature and the relationship with other people, is the relationship with the self. Because in this reality, it's usually called, in the normal reality in which we are, it's usually called a psychological disorder to express yourself into a number of characters instead of you being a unique personality. You know, it's a multiple personality disorder. While in the metaverse, while you are playing different roles and you can express yourself into different ways, it's more like a gaming or like an acting scenario. It's more like a theater, if you want want to put that analogy, or more like in a game, if you want to use that analogy, in which you can express yourself with the whole features, the whole characteristics, and the whole presence of another person than the one that you are expressing yourself in the current life. And then the problem is, which is obviously something very, really, challenging for all of us, with whom I'm interacting. I'm interacting with the actor that is playing a role, and then we are in an art form. We are into a non-legal relationship. We are in an artistic relationship with the expressions of the other person in our communication. We are in a game, and in the game we do have the game rules, which are game rules. These are not legal rules, but nevertheless they are game rules. And then we interact with the other into the context of the game, or we are interacting with the other in the context of a reality that it is expressed in the metaverse, but nevertheless that kind of reality that produces legal effects, because we are expressing our consent and we are expressing our intentions and our personality in the context that is producing legal effects. So it's the one that has this kind of classic definition of legal relationships. So that is a dilemma that we don't have so much in the near reality, because if I'm on a stage plays, if I'm going in a theater and I'm getting myself on the stage, I realize that we are all actors, and I don't have a problem with that. If I'm doing the same in a game, I know, in a football game or whatever other game it might be, I'm also realizing that. But in a reality that allow all three of them, and then we are more or less in a playful mood, or we are not, we have to define that. And that is an interesting thing. So, which are the mentalities that I found the most important reflected into the metaverse? Mentalities that almost like, if you want, it's almost like societies migrating into this new world with all their reflexes of thinking, behavior, and mentalities, and identity as a group identity. First of all, we have the game industry, with everything that comes from that sector moving into the metaverse. Then we have the social networks. And then we have all people that are using the metaverse as a new version of the social network. Then we have the companies that are simply using the metaverse as an additional territory. So with the territory of the Earth being limited, there are two options: outer space or virtual space. And some of them are migrating into outer space, some of them are migrating into the virtual space. But nevertheless, this is treated as a new business territory, with all the concept of a company moving there. And this is the mentality of this group of migrants, let's say, into the metaverse. Then we have the blockchain community. The whole blockchain community is actually sharing a specific type of philosophy, and that is the libertarian philosophy. They are based on distributed type of relationships, and they would like to bring this kind of relationships into all their social contexts, which is creating a specific type of, if you want, pressure into the context in which they are present, to rather choose distributed relationship instead of centralized relationship, centralized governance, centralized power, centralized decision-making process. And this is a group with its own type of mentalities. Then we have the artists. This is a whole new world. The artists having finally a world that they can create. And we are in a world that is not created by God, but is created by artists in terms of its visual artistic part. And they are not acting as gods of this reality, but nevertheless expressing their creativity, as in the mythology we have the concept of creators of this world, and the natural world, I mean. And they come with their expression of the vision that they have over the reality. And all those relationships are completely different than the ones of the last, I would say, group of mentalities, which is the technology group and the technology providers group. And they are coming with this kind of mentality of the engineers, the architects, the software engineers in particular, and they have their own type of needs and structure, mental patterns, which is obviously completely different than the artistic world. And they meet all of them into the metaverse. If you think at the metaverse in the future, it will be a territory like a new territory in which all these groups migrate, and now they need to interact with each other and decide together how the future of the relationship will be. Whether lawyers are a migrant group to this territory, that is obviously yes, but they are late migrants. We are much later than everybody else. And being much later than everybody else, when we come with our mentality, basically we cannot rule them so much, because we need to adapt our thinking with our reflexes outside this world to this new world, which already has its own habits, its own interactions. And we have to adapt to that. I'm not sure if governments of the various countries will be so prone to adapt to the mentality of the metaverse. But one thing I can say, that the younger the generations are, the more digital natives they are. And for that reason, at some point in time, not very far away, they will have a saying into the lawmaking process as well. And I expect that they will be able to adapt us in terms of legislation to the realities and mentalities that one can find in the metaverse. Well, just to summarize a bit, legal relationships there, well, I would say, first of all, mainly contractual, that is for sure, with some application of the outside the reality world into the metaverse. That is one second part. And the third one is behavioral I would say more like the usages, the trade usages type of relationships, which is an agreement between a number of traders that are interacting into a specific environment, that behave in a certain way for their joint interests. And at some point in time, whether this will become part of the law or not, it remains to be seen. But for sure, it is something that is law in the making. I mean, in the very early phases, created by this kind of joint behavior into the interactions in the metaverse. A legal fabric, I would say, of high complexity and of great beauty if you enjoy complexity as a style. If you want minimalistic style, I'm not sure this is the territory of minimalistic legal problems.
Thank you very much, Professor. That was super interesting. We have some questions, mainly from Katya in the Q&A box. I have one, if I may, before that, which is out of the metaverse, actually, but still on the different layers and the complexity that we have, putting together decentralization and centralization. I know you're a fervent advocate of the Lugano's Plan B, maybe because you live in Lugano, but I know that you also have an active role, at least in some of the initiatives. So I was wondering whether you could just spend a couple of words in explaining what that is and what's your take on that experiment.
Well, one of the reasons I moved into Lugano at some point in my life was this program, which is an amazing social reality in which a city decided to use a technology in order to allow a different development of the local community. And usually what's happening with the technology is that technology, especially in the digital space, the technology is completely used into the digital world, but in this case it's used in the real world. So what is happening? The municipality of Lugano has decided to enter into a private-public partnership with Tether, which is a provider of the DLT technology, of blockchain technology, and to allow the use on the territory of the municipality of Lugano of 3 different additional payment methods than the Swiss franc. First is one classic one, into the crypto world, which is the Bitcoin. Then is the Tether USD, which is relating, it's a stable coin, relating any kind of payment with in crypto Tether to US dollar. And thirdly, it's a local token called Luga, which was issued by the municipality. And with this token, actually the municipality created an ecosystem, a parallel ecosystem to the real world, let's say the one that is related to this kind of currency. So all the traders in the municipality, and if you go on the Plan B website, you can see a map of all the traders, and there are over 100, to accept payments into Luga. Every single person who's buying from those shops get a discount, but the discount is in Luga, which means that basically you accumulate Luga. The more you spend, the more you accumulate Luga, and you spend them into the system as well. So you need to spend it with other traders that accept that on the territory of the municipality. So this is basically almost like a fidelization program, a community building program, and also a program to educate the population as to the use of alternative currencies other than the national currency in Switzerland, which is the Swiss franc. There are educational programs developed together with the universities in the city, the 3 universities present here, that are aiming to educate all the generations. And there are young people, students, for instance, in communication, that are meeting the elders in the region to educate them to become able to use the cryptocurrency, to become able to use the blockchain technology, and to basically, in this training, one-to-one, to adapt themselves to this new reality. For me, it's a, professionally speaking, a wonderful opportunity, and for everybody living in this region, to see how you have startups in blockchain and artificial intelligence. In Lugano, it's one of the most important centers of artificial intelligence research, and they develop projects that are somehow very easily discussed with peers and introduce it to the community because of the hub that is built here, the hub of passionate investors into the blockchain technology, that can even have a lifestyle that is using the cryptocurrency, which is not easily obtained in some other places in the world. So it's a world with all the anthropological sense of it, in which a society can develop new relationships on this new technology.
Thank you very much.
I can see there is a question from the audience.
Yes, there's also one in the box, and
Yeah.
Anna, if you don't mind, we should maybe go first to that one. Jonathan,
No,
asked,
please go. Okay, please go on. Yeah.
What? Sorry. Okay. Jonathan asked how should disputes arising out of the metaverse be resolved?
That's an excellent question. Well, as I said, we have contractual relationships, most of them in the metaverse, but we should know that the relationships may be between the platform and the builders of various applications on the platform. Let's say the platform is Decentraland or Sandbox or whatever it is, and then you have the ones that are building different kind of applications on the platform, and then you have the relationships between the users that are using those applications on the platform. So if you want the visitors of the metaverse and the owners in the metaverse of various digital assets, and how they relate between them. And there are different type of relationships. One is the platform to the users, and then is between users. In most of the situations, we are on contractual territory. So the easiest way here is basically to try to apply arbitration, because you can include an arbitration agreement, and there are some included into many of the relationships into the metaverse. So some metaverses are referring to arbitration as a dispute resolution method. Other are not exactly using that, but simply referring to the courts of law of a specific country, so they choose a specific country. For instance, the Decentraland terms of use are referring to the ICC arbitration, and as place of arbitration, the city of Panama. But then other, for instance, the Horizon words have referred themselves to the Meta, to resolve the disputes in the way that Meta would consider appropriate. So there are a number of them. That is one way. Now, the most interesting problem is the default jurisdiction, which means which jurisdiction you would choose in case that you don't choose arbitration and you have no choice of a specific jurisdiction. And here the private international law will have its own challenges, I would say.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Anna, for waiting as well, if you want to ask your question.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Filippo. And many thanks, Crenguta, for your very insightful conversation and for sharing your views with us today. I'm actually going to go back to the discussion on the native token of Lugano, because as you described it as an ecosystem and infrastructure actually for the city of Lugano, I had a question that just popped up to my mind. So in the aftermath of the news, for instance, concerning the Silicon Valley Bank or the Signature Bank, do you think that perhaps a native token like Luga could become actually something more than just, let's say, an utility token, but more as a store of value or even unit of account for the city?
Well, a unit of account, it's easy to become. That's something simple. A specific type of currency, I mean, like a state backup currency, is difficult. For that, we have the GBDC. So we have a whole theory of how, you know, the states will move towards the blockchain-based digital currencies. And that is a different story. So certitude as to the value of a specific type of token is coming from the, I would say, from the strength of the ecosystem in which you can use it. Because it's one thing to store it, and then we are discussing about the storage, and it's a different thing to use it. The more and the bigger an ecosystem is, the more you can use this token. And if you think about the choice of Lugano, widen the options, because it's not that they imposed in any way the use of Luga, they simply offered it as an option. But then you have the Bitcoin, and then you are related with a Bitcoin ecosystem, all the traders that can then contribute to this ecosystem. You are linked through Tether to the ecosystem of the United States, because it's a stable coin that it is related to a US dollar. And then you are also always in the possibility to use the Swiss franc. So basically, we are living linked here in Lugano with 4 different ecosystems: business ecosystems, economic ecosystems, and also different kind of behavioral, I would say, crowds. And that is important, because if, for instance, in case of normal banks and fiat currency, the type of behavior people have is to withdraw the currencies and just try to store them somewhere else. With the digital assets, you cannot store them other than on storage devices, so they remain digital, whatever. You cannot take them from a contractual relationship and put them into your pocket. You will take them from one contractual relationship and you will move them into a different contractual relationship with somebody else, with the other type of well, be it a wallet or being a storage system of any kind. So my view is that the more diversity you have into your portfolio, the less the risk is concentrated in one situation. So if I would be to think economically and not necessarily legally, I would think in these terms. If I would think legally, I would try to make sure that my contracts are clear, and when I'm ticking the box of terms and conditions, I would carefully read the chapter in which guarantees are described there. And then I would, try to treat any contract seriously and just not tick the boxes like, it wouldn't matter. I would be very careful as to why and how a certain relationship is designed to take place in a certain way. And if I don't like it, I don't take it. Nobody forces you to take it. It's not like with a fiat currency that you cannot live without. With a cryptocurrency, you can live without. You can choose another one, or you can choose to deposit it in a different way. So I would say that the value comes from flexibility and diversity, and spreading the risk into different kind of relationships and ecosystems, rather than in thinking at the cryptocurrency as being one only with a high risk. I don't think it's that. I think it's more like a variety of options that you have.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's amazing. I think we almost stayed in the time limit, and that was really good. We have some questions from Katja, but I think that we can maybe address them offline, and that works for everyone else as well. If you have questions, we can, you can reach out to Crenguta directly, or you can do that with Katja and me, and we can forward your questions to Professor Crenguta. And
may I a brief intervention? Because I'm
Of
an
course.
alternative, thinker in my way. I would like to address a question to the audience. I mean, let's reverse the roles for once. And my question to the audience, and I don't need an answer right now, but at some point in time, I would love to receive a message from them with the answer to that, would be, if it is one need, one specific need that you are not met properly in the normal life that we have in the current reality, what need would be that? And if you think that in the metaverse that need could be met, so what is the one need that you don't have the possibility to fully fulfill here in this type of world, and you believe that it might be a chance to be fulfilled into the metaverse? That's my question.
Difficult, but very interesting one. I'll definitely try to reply to that, to answer to that question. And I hope that everyone else will do as well. So please join me in thanking Professor Crenguta. I think it was a great session, and I hope that I'll see you, everyone, in the next session next Tuesday. Thank you very much.